Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Cultists, back again with part 4 of our exploration game series. Today we're going to be talking about key variables. For this purpose, I have supplied a key. Now to make it more visible, we're going to expand it a bit. And you can consider this a quick little crash course on how to create item pickups. So we're just going to do this real quick. Stamp out a cylinder, set it to a mirror, that way you know the exact center. Reduce detail because this thing really isn't going to be visible in the game. Just make it non-collidable and not visible. Reduce the physics and everything else. Don't bother labeling it, it won't be important. It is invisible after all. It's mainly going to act as a mount for our key here. And we're going to go ahead and group these two things just by pressing X on both of them and then pressing this little doohickey. You can ungroup them at any time by pressing this, and you can convert them into a painting by pressing that, but that's probably not necessary in this case. You can also save the creation, or scope in by just pressing that button. Another way to scope into the group is to use L1 and X. That's a handier way to do it. But without further ado, let's get started. Oh, one other thing. Make sure the key is non-collidable. Don't turn off invisibility, though. That's actually going to be important. And we're going to stamp a microchip, and you can snap it to surface with L, and then just press X. But basically, this microchip is going to act as our item pickup. We're going to put all of our logic in here. And the first thing I want to do is create a little spinning, make it look like it's spinning. I also might tip it a bit. And if you want to preview invisibility, just go to Show and Hide and turn this on. And you'll see what it'll look like without the invisible boundary. Anyway, I think that's pretty much all we need to do with this. Now I'm going to show you a little something else. Stamp out a tag. We're going to label this tag Grab. Move it to the center. This is very important and you'll understand why later. Now we're going to go quickly over to Interact. And we're going to stamp out a trigger zone. And we're going to set it to Detect Tag and Detect Grab. And this is going to be the hitbox for detecting items. Now to explain something real quick, you may be wondering, why are we doing this in reverse? Aren't you supposed to put out a tag and then put a zone on the item to pick it up, similar to what we did with the door? Well, the answer is quite simple. This is a more efficient method. If you're going to be doing a lot of item collection, it's good to reduce your zones, because you can only have so many active zones in a scene. But basically what this does is, when this zone comes in contact with a tag, the tag will become active, and it will have an output, and that output can be used to trigger logic, like this timeline, which we will set to play once. Just stick it right there in the power. And we're going to put a destroyer on it, and we're going to watch the effects of our work. You'll notice the key disappears. That's good. That means the tag is being triggered and it's all working properly. Now we're going to take out one other little gadget from logic and processing, called a variable modifier. And I'll explain what these do. But for now, we're just going to go ahead put it on the timeline, set it to add, which means it will add a value to our variable, the one that it is labeled defined, which is the variable name. Just fill in the void here by pressing X, and we're going to set it to key. Alright. And we're going to set it to 1. That will be the value that it adds once the key has been picked up. And we're going to do another little thing over here. We're going to stamp out a yellow cube using grid snap, mirror, and stamp shape. Now you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with all the other stuff? Well, I'll explain in a moment. Make it invisible, make it non-collidable, just as the key mount was. And it's probably a pretty good idea to copy this, because you may end up needing more of these little invisible mounts, but we'll just leave this off to one side for now. And we'll change the color so we don't get mixed up between the two. Just put a tag on it. And we're going to title this Variables. And we're going to set a variable within it. Now basically what a variable is a constant within the game, which when triggered will remain active, and you can even set it so that it's active in other scenes. So if you leave this level and go to another level and come back and this variable is active or has a value input into it, it will remain at that value if you set it to persist in Dream. If not, it will reset when you leave the level. But it's a good way for creating scoreboards and other things, but for now we're going to use it in a save data sort of way, to save logic and to save things that we've, activated. But we're going to set it to persist in Dream. And we're going to set the minimum range to 0. You don't really want it to be negative. We're not going to be, affecting that. And we're going to set the maximum value to 1, because that's just necessary. And we're going to retitle the variable to key. Now real quick, if you're going to be modifying a variable, make sure you get the spelling right, down to what kind of case you used and what kind of spaces you used. It's very important. Dreams does have a tendency to cut the spaces down, so that's not as important, but the case and the letters used is omni-important, so keep that in mind. Now this is going to act as our collectible for when we activate the key. When this variable is active, it will trigger this. I should say this modifier will trigger that variable and put 1 into it, which is good. And now I'm going to explain one other thing. You may be wondering, why am I using a timeline? Why not just hook up the tag to the variable and to the destroyer and just have it destroy and trigger the variable at the same time? The reason being is that you do not want to miss this. In a game, a key item like this that triggers a variable is extremely important, and you want to give the game time to process this and make sure that it is activated before being destroyed. And when they're both triggered at the same time, there's a little bit of ambiguity with that, where you might mess up, so just don't ever do that. And we can even hook up a little sound effect for our collection. Let's go to MM Sounds. We'll go to Gaming, Positive Power-Ups, and we'll just take this cryptocurrency, and if you put the, if you go in here with L1 and square, you'll see the increased value. Just stick that in the power node of this sound effect. Set the volume. And there you have it. The variable is active. Now real quick, I am going to show how to collect items and make things, unlock and such, but I intend to do that in another video. But for the time being, we're just going to show the kind of effect that variables can have. So we're going to put a destroyer, which basically eliminates an object, put it within the group, otherwise you'll eliminate the entire group and not that specific asset. And we're going to put the current value, which is basically just a universal power output from the variable. It's useful. Sometimes you can deliberate it and mess with it, which I will talk about perhaps in other videos. It's very handy. You can build some pretty complex games using that. But basically when we collect the key, the door will be permanently open. Now isn't that handy? And even if we leave the level, we can come back here and collect, we can come back here and the door will be open. Now one other thing you're going to want to do is, because the key, once it's active, you don't really want it to be, you don't want to collect it again and add another value to the variable. So how do you make the key stay gone? Well, it's quite simple. All you do is place an extra destroyer on the key. And then you take this little number here. Well, actually, you might want to do one little tiny thing extra. Create a timeline, set it to play once. The reason why you don't want the key destroyed immediately is because you're still going to have to trigger that variable when you first pick it up. And when it's first picked up, it will trigger this on and activate this. So yes, you don't want it instantly disappearing. There may be a little pop-in if you have your key visible when you enter a level, but it's not really a huge deal. I think people can understand this sacrifice. But yes, now the key will permanently destroy every time you enter the scene. Of course, we can't test that. We may do that later. I'm thinking of constructing more scenes so that I can show you how doorways work and other things. And when that happens, we'll test to see the key, remains gone. But for the time being, this is pretty much the end of the video. I'm going to give a little shout out to our monthly subscribers on Ko-fi and display their names here. But in the meantime, that's all. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you never miss another video. If you wish to support our earnest insanity, you can check the links in the description to donate or buy merch. Until next time, goodbye.